I'm Mary. I'm an alcoholic. I just want to say congratulations, Zed, on 60 days. That's awesome. And Crystal, 6 months. I'm so happy to see you get that. And Mike, congratulations on 20 years. And I am so honored to introduce our speaker today. I was at his very first meeting and a lot of meetings since then. And anyone, this is the person that I think of when I think of what this program can do for someone, and someone really embracing it and doing all three sides of the triangle. You know, Devin has had an impact on more people in this program than just about anyone that I can think of. And, I see him doing service. I see him doing recovery, working with his sponsor and sponsoring other men, and definitely unity. Um, and so I'm really honored to introduce Devin.
Hi, everybody. My name is Devin. I am an alcoholic, which I suppose isn't surprising, given the circumstances. Congratulations, Zed. 60 days is a major victory, as is 6 months Crystal, and 20 years. Whoa, Mike, whoa. That's a lot of time. And it makes me wonder why I'm up here, speaking at all, because it feels like I don't know anything. So what I'm going to do is try to end a little bit early so we can hear from the birthdays, maybe, if anyone's willing. So that's my generous contribution to this meeting. Ending early. Thanks, Crystal, for asking me also to speak. What a privilege to be up here at all. Just sober, alive. That in and of itself is a miracle. And then to be asked to, I don't know, share my story is a big, it feels like a big thing. So I'm trying to just like not have it be a big thing and just be, sharing my experience, strength and hope like I do at any meeting I go to, and maybe not make a big deal out of my pretty ordinary alcoholic experience. I have a sobriety date. It is June 16, 2022. Pause for applause. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. But better now than later. And so that means I'm sort of coming up on a milestone here. I've got my 2-year milestone in just a couple of weeks. And I was up here last year, right after my 1 year, and I feel like last year I had a lot more like sureness of myself and my program, maybe just having like recently completed the steps, and everything was like new, and I had a lot of like self-assurance and confidence. And then this past year has been a little different. But let me just rewind a little bit, because I feel like most stories begin well at the beginning of the story. So I grew up in Wisconsin, in the Milwaukee area, big drinking town. Milwaukee, like the Brewers are the baseball team. So it's obviously, German beer garden culture, and everybody drinks there like everywhere else, it seems. And I was tremendously curious about what it was all about as a kid. And I couldn't wait to be older and to be an adult and to be doing adult things, which, meant drinking. So, so in a lot of ways, like I think I idolized, adulthood, and being able to like party was maybe something that I felt like I wasn't able to do as a kid. And so I don't know. How does one even like tell the story of one's life? I think I really looked forward as a kid to being able to make, decisions for myself. And a running theme in my life is like this arrogance that like I know what's best for me, and this ignorance of like consequences and like the gravity of certain situations. So I discovered alcohol in high school, like a lot of my peers, and it was a way for me to fit in. I didn't really feel like I fit in, and I felt like I was like a supporting character for most of my life. Like my brother was older, and like all of his friends were sort of my friends, but I was really like a hanger on in his crowd as a small child. And then I sort of struggled to make friends as a kid, and was always kind of like bookish and unathletic and lame. Um, um, or so like I felt that way. I felt like a difference, and lo and behold, I'm also a homosexual. So that didn't help in high school, and so what? So I turned to drinking because drinking made me feel like I was popular. My parents were sometimes out of town, and I would host parties, and people would come and have a great time, and we'd all be smashed. And I felt like I was a part of, you know, my peer group, and that really carried me through high school. Is like looking forward to those events and looking forward to like that sense of relief that came from drinking. And um, and then I went out, and I couldn't wait to leave Wisconsin. I couldn't wait to be out in the world, going to college and living life and having, experiences that were separate from what I knew. And I think that's a common thing for people, but I really felt it really acutely. Like I could not wait to leave and never come back. Uh, so I did. Um, I moved to Rhode Island, lived there for a few years, um, and went to school, partied hard, drank a lot, kind of got good grades, but then, I discovered drugs. And as this is an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, I'm just gonna kind of skip over a lot of like the drug stuff. But it's a big part of my story. I had to take time off from school because the university was like, "You're not safe to be here." Uh, and then I went back, and then they told me again that I should take a hiatus. So from early adulthood, like there were consequences. Um, like, and I didn't care. What I cared about was like exploring how I could modify the way that I felt inside. And that's all I wanted, is to feel okay and to be um and to be drunk or high was okay. Because I didn't know that there was a way to do it without that. Like that was the first time I had felt that relief and comfort. And I clung on to that, and I rode that into a really dark period after I discovered heroin. And so I spent 7 years as a daily intravenous drug user, and I'm like grateful to be alive because a lot of people who have that experience don't necessarily continue breathing well much longer. So truly. And so alcohol was always there. It wasn't like my main it wasn't always like my main go-to source of uh trouble, but it was always like in the background, and it was always there. And eventually like I uh I would like burn out on one substance and go to another and go to another, and then like at the end of the carousel, or the what is it, not magical chairs, musical chairs, like the final chair for me was alcohol. um and that's why I'm an alcoholic. Like I will take almost anything and use it alcoholically or use it abusively. And so without getting too much into the details of my whole life, um uh I moved out to Missoula in 2021, and by that point I was like just a drinker. Like there was no chance of me uh using drugs, and it was just like the only thing that I like sort of had permission to do was drink. Because in my brain like I had run out of excuses for other stuff, and drinking is legal. Alcohol, you can get it, safely, uh so to speak. And then, and I was okay with that. I was happy with that, um, in comparison. And it was still pretty miserable. I was drinking every day. I would like not be able to keep a bottle stocked because I would drink it in the morning. I would drink it at work, like off camera. I work remotely, so it makes it easy to like not have to be around people. And you know, I could have a coffee mug and be drinking vodka out of it. And I did. Um, and I didn't think it was a problem because I had this rule in my brain where if I didn't drink on Tuesdays, then I wasn't an alcoholic. Until a Tuesday came around and I was drinking. And then I was like, okay, I guess I just drink every day now. And it was okay. Like it didn't feel okay and it didn't look okay. Um, and it wasn't like a conscious choice. It was, as I know now, a disease that was taking control of my life and that had been in control of my life for quite some time, possibly since the beginning, because I don't believe personally that a person develops alcoholism. I think it's something that's like inherent almost. Because some people turn into alcoholics and some people don't. Some people drink a lot and aren't alcoholic. And I am an alcoholic. So I think I mentioned that already. So okay, so then what happened? Then I was at the bar. Then I drove home as I often did, and I hit a parked car on Fifth Street. And I went to jail. And I'd been to jail many times before for possession, for fleeing and eluding the police, for possession again, possession again. So, but like in my story, because I wasn't in trouble for alcohol, I could drink, because I wasn't only drunk. Like when I would get arrested, just a funny thing to say. Um, uh, so I've lived in 5 different states and I've been arrested in all of them. So I'm no stranger to like spending the night in jail or spending a few weeks in jail. But at some point I ran out of excuses. And I think that was that day, the day before my sobriety date. I just was finally done making excuses for my behavior and said, this has to stop. There's no way this can continue. So I have to do something to stop it. And I wasn't sure of a lot on that day, but I knew that I had to go to a meeting. Um, I didn't know where to find one, but I do know how to use Google, which is a really important skill. Um, and I remember my car. So my car had been towed. It was like really messed up, and it was in some tow yard in the Y. And my phone was inside, and I was in jail, right? So I woke up, like, walked home, after the arraignment or whatever. And I Googled the tow yard before the meeting, right? Because I really needed my phone or whatever. And then so I walked there. It was like 8 miles, and nobody was there. And on my way back, this is the moment where I had this like psychic change where I was like, I gotta do something different because I suddenly had no recourse. Like I was alone. I didn't know anybody in Missoula. And it was hot. It was June. It was like 90 degrees. I didn't have any water. Nothing was going right. I felt like on the brink of just continued misery. And I'd been miserable before, and that was nothing new. Like nothing was special about that day. The thing that was special is that like I finally like I looked at the sun sort of, and I just had a psychic change where I was like, I have to be sober now. Like this is it. And that's such a magical experience because it because I'd had horrific experiences before, like waking up in a hospital having overdosed. That didn't do it. Spending 3 months in Fulton County Jail in Georgia, that didn't do it. Like nothing was worse this time. But something was a lot better, and that was this picture in my head of a friend of mine who's been sober like 17 years. She and I were close friends in college, and she started going to meetings at 19 years old. Her name is Katie. She lives in Michigan, and and her life got better. And I never saw myself as in the same class as this other person or needing the same kind of help. But as our lives sort of diverged, hers got better and better, and mine got worse and worse. And then I just made the connection in my brain that I was actually no different from this other person, and that there was nothing stopping me from having that kind of life either. And so that's like, and this is somebody that I knew at that point 15 years before. And so it's a little nutty to think that like the life of one person 15 years down the road can affect someone in such like a profound way, as like inspiring me to go to a meeting and to check out the message of Alcoholics Anonymous in the community here. It's like, that's a debt that I can't really repay. And I mean, there's a ton of stuff I wanted to say, but she really saved my life that day. And my higher power was there too, making that happen for me. Just the stars aligned, I guess. And I went to a meeting, and Mary was the speaker. Thanks, Mary, for introducing me. It was a Thursday, and it was the Missoula group. Because I was like, I'm in Missoula. There's an Alcoholics Anonymous group. It meets every day, and so I went there. That's my home group. If you don't have a home group, I really recommend finding one, where you click with the people and you can show up and do service and be there for other people, and people get to know you, etc. And I went there, and I made a decision to try it out. I didn't know I was going to be, at that time I saw sobriety as like a sentence or a punishment, as a form of bondage or something where I couldn't be free. And I was wrong. I was wrong about a lot of stuff, and I still can be. And what I really learned on the day was that not only am I an alcoholic, but there's lots of other alcoholics, which makes my life not so unique, not so special, and not so like unmanageable too. Because if I can see other people living their sober lives and being happy doing it, then there's nothing that can stop me from doing the same. And so the sense that I got leaving that meeting was that there was hope for me. And it's that hope that keeps me coming back, and it keeps me sober, because on bad days, I just go to a meeting and I get a little bit of that relief that I got that first day. And that carries me through. And that's, I think, the power of Alcoholics Anonymous, is that we all share something in common, and we share something really serious. It's a fatal disease. And if I don't, I was talking with my mom 2 days ago, and I was talking about sobriety, and I was like, it's a life or death situation for me. And she was like, when did you realize that? Like, when did you come to that realization? And I told her, probably in our first meeting, because I was fully open to hearing the message and fully like cognizant of how much damage I had caused myself. Not only through, like the legal stuff which I've mentioned, but I also have like serious health like problems that I was just ignoring. And so it is life or death. Because for me, like, to drink is to die. And I think about that a lot. And it doesn't mean like when I touch alcohol, it means I keel over like dead. It means the life I'm living today, the life that I get to live, any life at all, hinges entirely upon me staying sober. Because in my mind, there is no alternative where I'm not actively sober. So I just don't allow myself to picture that, because it's black and white. And when it's black and white like that, for me, I don't have a choice. And because I don't have a choice, it makes it easy to make the right choice, which is being sober and actively involved in Alcoholics Anonymous, because it saved my life. I haven't been arrested in 2 years. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And how, right? It's not just going to meetings. It's not just admitting that I'm an alcoholic, though those are integral components. It's also developing a relationship with a higher power. And so there's this line on page 62 that I wanted to read. It's I don't know where it is. It says God makes that possible. And I think about that constantly. Because whatever it is, like it's not me that's doing it. It's me like in touch with a higher power who's like capable of accomplishing things. Like left to my own devices without uh a spiritual connection to something, literally anything but me, I make awful decisions. Because I'm often selfish and I have to stay away from that. And so for me, I'm not a terrible person inside. I just make terrible decisions, right? Um, so it's like I don't know. Step two is a big component of my sobriety because my whole life I think I had been searching for something and I didn't know how vital it was. It was just like, oh, people go to church, people have religious faith, uh, people have this thing that I don't really need. It doesn't, take away anything not to have it from my life. But that was very mistaken to believe. I think, and it's a personal journey, and it's hard to like share openly about spiritual things. But I think in meetings, it's really easy to like let down those walls a little bit, and people talk about God, and people talk about their higher powers, and people actually have a connection in a way that's uh desperate. Because that's how I feel, when I go through something difficult, uh, then I need something to pull me through. And I guess I want to talk about some of the events since I've been sober that have been really important to me. About a year ago, my father passed away, and it sucked. And I was not yet a year sober, so it was a very challenging situation, and I didn't drink over it. And and that's crazy to me. That's crazy. Um, but it's not surprising because you all told me that it was possible to do things like that. To far worse things have happened to many people, and they didn't drink over it. And without that example, without attending meetings and telling people what I was going through, I wouldn't have had access to that kind of like direct uh, experience. And and that was just such an awful situation. He was diagnosed with cancer like 2.5 years ago, and so it was a long, drawn out like decline. And then so like we all sort of knew it was coming, but we didn't know when. And then it happened, and I had to fly down to Georgia and be the dutiful son for my family, and it was tremendously difficult. I wasn't sleeping. It was like physically overwhelming at times, and every day I was on the phone with my sponsor. Every day I would like call from the hospital parking lot structure. There's this bench thing and like overgrown trees and stuff. Stupid. Uh, and I would just cry. And I didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't know how I was going to get through the next 24 minutes, let alone 24 hours. And I called a lot of people besides my sponsor, and it was really an opportunity for me to see in real time like what people mean when they say the fellowship supported them through something difficult. And and it was easy to make those calls because it was like a bright spot in dark time. And and that really like fed my soul. Um and I wouldn't have that. I wouldn't I'm not the kind of person who has those kind of connections. I don't have them from the before times, and I have them only through Alcoholics Anonymous, essentially. And that's crazy. Like the brilliant wonder of this program is the community and the fellowship and the shared like humanity um that maybe years and years and years of misery like allows us to access, I think. Um so so what do? I mean, I spent a lot of last year searching for a job, and that was also terrifying and scary. And I again picked up the phone and called people, and now I have a wonderful job, and I have uh, Alcoholics Anonymous to thank for that too. And so like life just keeps getting better in a lot of ways. Like I've been through some stuff, uh, but life is really good. I have friends and family relationships, and a wonderful life, thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous. And it's because of doing the steps, and I don't want to like skip over most of them, but like the inventory, big deal. It's a big deal to do a 4-step inventory. It's a big deal to talk about it with somebody else. It's a big deal to decide to get rid of this stuff that doesn't work. It's a big deal to show up to somebody and say, hey, I was a piece of shit to you. How can I make it better? And it's a big deal to actually continue to do those things that they suggest that you can do, that I can do to make it better. And like the work of the steps is ongoing. It doesn't stop. It's a way of life, and it's fully. I wish I could sit up here and just and say the words that would convey how much my life has changed, but I can only like paint in like coarse detail, like the broad strokes of it. But from I absolutely hated life. I hated waking up. I hated how it felt to be awake, and I wanted it to change. And I don't feel like that anymore. I feel like my life has a purpose, and I feel like if I do nothing but be sober and go to a meeting, then that's a victory. And I try to keep it simple, like just a day without a drink is a win, and it's an important win because to me it gives me an opportunity to do it again the next day. And what else do I want to say? I had another death in the family just a couple of weeks ago. My grandmother, who spent a ton of time basically helping raise me, she passed away after a long struggle with dementia. And that was it was like this year has been objectively bad. And I feel like kind of weird saying it was actually a really good year too. So it's like, I just feel like I'm in this uncomfortable position of like accepting that life is good and bad sometimes on the same day. And it's okay if I have like heavy feelings that I can't fully like describe. Because I have people that I can call and spend time with that understand the struggle of being an alcoholic on top of life stuff, right? Because it's like everybody experiences loss, but for an alcoholic, it's a perilous time, because when our emotions start to like control how we act, we don't have a solid like routine and a habit, then it's maybe bad. I don't know. And who's to say that like I just know the things that help me. And the things that help me are showing up for other people, working with other alcoholics, going to meetings, staying connected to my notion of a higher power, and trying most days to like be a better version of me. I don't know if I have like a profound experience that's different from anybody else in this room. But you know, you can only see the magic of AA so many times before it's like, what are you even talking about? It's just the wonders don't cease for me, and I'm just thrilled to be here and sharing a little bit. Is there anything else I wanted to talk about? Probably working with others is the biggest thing that I've missed so far. Can be extremely challenging, can be extremely rewarding, but I wanted to read the part from Dr. Bob's Nightmare, where he says, I spend a great deal of time passing on what I have learned to others who want and need it badly. I do it for 4 reasons. 1, sense of duty. 2, it is a pleasure. 3, because in doing so, I am paying my debt to the man who took time to pass it on to me. And 4, because every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. And those are really good reasons to work with other people. Just briefly going through them, sense of duty, that's the first one. And, you know, if I'm trying to follow those steps, it means I have to. The 12 step says we tried to carry this message to alcoholics. So the expectation that I'm going to be able to continue like reaping the rewards of sobriety is dependent on me working each of the steps. And so the 12th one, like I don't have a choice. And so I do it because I feel I need to. It's a pleasure. Of course it's a pleasure. Sometimes. It's really cool to be able to meet somebody else on a regular basis and get into the details of their life and their experience, and to kind of just ask questions and give feedback sometimes in a way where it's like we're equals. We're both alcoholics trying to be sober, and the best way to do it is one-on-one with another person, and the best way to do it is to stay in the book. So reading this book, this is my emotional support book. I brought it with me so that I could have things to talk about if I ran out of things to say. And it's a pleasure. This book is full of wisdom. It's full of knowledge from people who are just like us. And people, you know, say what you will about the language in the big book. They're just like us. And we can learn from them. And in doing so, I'm paying my debt to the man who took time to pass it on to me. This is a man who took time away from his wife and kids, and his job, and his desire to sit on the couch and watch a movie to meet me for coffee for like an hour and a half once a week for a year, or however long it was. This is somebody who doesn't have to be sacrificing his own time, and I really try to remember that, and to have a sense of gratitude towards that, because it's because he took that time. I mean, perhaps it could have been anyone, but it was him who did it. And so I think there's a really important part of like being grateful to the people who've come before, and passing it on to the newcomer as well. And then every time I do it, I take out a little more insurance for myself against a possible slip. What this reminds me of, and I think I'll close with this, because I really want to hear from the birthdays, is the saying where it's like, if I have one hand on my higher power and one on another alcoholic, then I have no hands to drink. Thank you, everybody.